Good morning and welcome everybody to my channel and to my podcast. This is JV Talks, episode 14. My name is Jakub Vaniš and today we're gonna be discussing my favorite podcasts actually. So this is a podcast. I'm gonna be talking about podcasts because that's something that, really inspired me to do what I do right now in my free time, which is doing a YouTube channel and the podcasts themselves. I still remember when I started doing this, when I got my first AirPods, that really changed my life, to be honest. I was always an audiophile and I always had the best let's say headphones possible with the best sound, especially for music. But to be honest, the cord always hits something and that really takes you out. Sometimes it's really loud. It kind of triggers a tinnitus, for me. So I'm so great that I switched, for AirPods, when they first launched. I still remember when they were announced, everybody was laughing at them, including me. I didn't like the design. It really felt and looked awkward, but they were doing great for themselves. So they were selling like hotcakes, and I could not resist, and after like 2 years when they were already out, I purchased them, and it changed my world because I started to use them all the time, before I go to sleep, just to listen to a podcast or to an audiobook, when I'm on a run, when I'm exercising, when I'm doing the chores at home, etc. It really makes you so much more effective and efficient because you can combine multiple things, like you're doing something for your body or, cleaning up or something like that, while still learning new information. So for me, that purchase really changed my world for better and the quality of my life for better. And this is when I probably started with podcasts around 2019. I think it was like maybe 2 years before the COVID pandemic, something like that, 2018-19. I'm not sure exactly when the AirPods launched. I think 2017. So these were the first podcasts, and it started to become bigger and bigger, and nowadays it's one of the biggest format and one of the favorite formats of most of the common folk. So I decided to today basically list my top 12 favorite podcasts and explain to you, which are those, who is running them, and why should you try them. And maybe, this will inspire you to check it out as well, and maybe to try some of these out yourself. So I will start with something that is quite niche. I don't think that many people will know this, and that's an experience that is not ongoing, that actually ended, I think, in 2021 or something like that, and it's called The Habitat. So that's my number 12. And The Habitat is a podcast that is kind of like a show / experiment. Basically, they put people into like a dome that is somewhere in the desert or in the mountains. Basically, they're abandoned there for, I think, a year. I'm not sure exactly. Now, I re-listened to this 2 years ago. So I've heard it twice, and it's so good because people inside, are recorded, and they get their own, microphones, to record their thoughts, and basically they're locked there for 12 months, and when they go out they need to put on scaphanders or some kind of suits, because basically this is a test from NASA to see if people would survive something like going to Mars or building a lunar base on Moon. So it's really, really cool because you see what is going on in people's heads, what they think about each other, and they don't even tell it to each other. It is so well edited, and there's a lot of also like sound effects used. So it's almost like a story that actually is something that happened there. So I cannot, push it more because I don't think that many people know this, but I really am praising this, and I think you should give it a try. After first few minutes, you will see if you're into it. But I was hooked after the first episode. I think there's like 10 or 12 of them over the course of that 1 year, but it's quite dramatic, and it's something else. So The Habitat is my number 12. Now, my number 11 is linked to my passion or my hobby. One of my hobbies is gaming. I was always a gamer since Yeah, as far as I can remember, since I was like 5-6 years old, we had Commodore 64 at home. That was my first kind of gaming console. But so nowadays I'm more on PlayStation 5 or a Nintendo Switch. So I sometimes also listen to gaming podcasts, and my favorite ones are actually from IGN. I know this is a kind of big conglomerate, but I like the guys there. I like the actors, and they are basically giving us weekly content. So my two favorite podcasts from IGN are Podcast Beyond, which is about PlayStation 5, and NVC, which stands for Nintendo Voice Chat. So it's a lot of fun, basically, especially when there are new announcements, new reviews, etc. You have the reviewers themselves, sometimes the creators, the developers in the studio, and it's a lot of fun. It's like, listening to a couple of friends, talking over a beer about video games, and I'm a big video game nerd, so I can recommend it to everybody who's into this. So NVC and Podcast Beyond, my number 11. Now to my number 10, which is gonna be Spacewalk with Everyday Astronaut. So this is something that is quite new. Everyday Astronaut, is a great YouTuber, a content creator that is super inspiring to me. The guy started from nothing, and now I think he has like over 2 million subscribers, maybe even more. And he recently started doing a podcast, and this is a different format than his YouTube channels. He is doing it when he's on a walk or in a car, even driving or something like that. So he's just basically putting his thoughts, there, or basically answering questions from his fans. But it's really, really a lot of deep stuff about space, about rockets, about engines, and I really enjoy that stuff. So that is Spacewalk with Everyday Astronaut, number 10. Now, number 9 is an OG, really original show, something that started it all as a phenomenon, and that's Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience. So he really started this long-form, content podcasting. His shows are sometimes 3-4 hours long. So that is almost as long as like an audiobook or something like that. And often it's really worth it, and it's incredible. He has 3,000 shows behind him, and he's still keeping strong. He also does his stand-up show, and he's doing really great for himself, and it's inspiring, especially to also younger generations and younger content creators, and to me as well. But I had him really high, like in top 3, but it kind of dropped recently because not because of the controversy, but maybe because I think the people that he's now inviting are not that exciting to me. He's also really into MMA a lot, and into what else? Into like aliens. I like the alien conspiracies that he likes, but I think something changed in his brain regarding COVID pandemic, and he's now also not believing that we've been to the moon, etc. So nothing against Joe. I think he's incredible as an interviewer and as a human being, but it's just now my number 9 instead of number 3 or something like that. So still give it a shot. What I do is usually maybe once per month, when there is an exciting episode or exciting guest, then I'm gonna tune in, but I'm definitely not listening to every single one of them, because also I don't have enough time. This is like 3 hour per episode, so that's crazy. The next one, number 8, is called Cinefix Top 100. So I'm a big cinephile. As you can see, I really enjoy movie-going experience. So these guys are basically reviewing like a combined list of top ranking 100 movies of all time, and you never know what you're gonna get. They sometimes get like a number 76, and then they go to number 12, and then 50, and blah 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 blah. But usually it's really some of those great movies that we like, from history, something more recent but also old ones, and you really pull a lot of stuff also about making of this, a lot of trivia. So if you're into movies, I can recommend this, because it's a lot of fun, and you will learn a lot about movie making, about your favorite movies. So that's my number 8, Cinefix Top 100. Then my number 7 is something from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it's called Arnold Spam Club. and it's amazing because basically this is a daily show. He's sending it on daily basis, and sometimes it's 5 minutes long, sometimes it's 10 minutes long. He also sends it as a subscription letter or email that comes to your mailbox, but I really prefer this because it's read by him, it's said by him, in his own words, and it's amazing. It's always inspiring, and you always learn something new about what to eat, how to exercise, what to do to improve your mood, etc., etc. So Arnold Spam Club is my daily dose of positivity and is my number 7. Next one, number 6, is Stuff You Should Know. Stuff You Should Know is one of the, again, OG kind of podcasts that has been with us since like 2017 or something like that. They have done a lot of episodes, and it's really exciting because there is Josh and Clark together. They're really great friends and their chemistry is amazing, but they always deep dive into some topic that you always wanted to know more about. I don't know, let's say car engines or nuclear reaction or some, I don't know, conspiracy theory or whatever, and they really deep dive into it for like 1 hour. They go really deep and explain all the do's and don'ts and how does it work, and it's called Stuff You Should Know, and again, like I said, the best thing about it is kind of the comedy, the style that they are talking about. It's very educative, but it's a lot of fun, and these two guys have such a great chemistry together. I think you're missing out if you're not trying it out. So Stuff You Should Know, check it out please. So that's my number 6. And now we're getting into my top 5. So on my number 5 place is Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Again, one of the shows that is a tough cookie, I think, for a lot of people. I got inspired by Elon Musk because he said that he's listening to this with his girlfriends or whatever before he goes to sleep. These episodes are sometimes like 8 hours long, even longer. And Dan Carlin is basically launching one episode per like half a year or something like that. So there's not that many of them, but he goes really into some epoch or into some, let's say, into some king or, for example, Alexander the Great or Persians or something like that. So he's gonna spend 8 hours talking about Alexander the Great, what he did, but like the way he does it is just like that, like really grabs you and like it lures you in. You really want to hear all about this life, and he does so much education and so much explanation and digging deep into different methodologies. It's super exciting stuff, and you learn so much during this. And again, it's so relevant because you can compare it to these days and how actually these people were kind of very similar to us, just living thousands of years ahead of us, and they didn't have iPhones, but otherwise they were dealing with the same stuff. And Dan Carlin is doing an amazing job. So that's my number 5, Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Now, my number 4, let's say one of my favorite health, enthusiasts and health content creator is Andrew Huberman. So the podcast that he created, which is called Huberman Lab, is really great for education about your body, about hormones, about vitamins, about exercise, about anything that improves your life, that makes you feel great, that makes you healthy. And he's super inspiring to me. I cannot wait. He has a new book that it will be coming out, I think beginning of next year or something like that, called Protocols. I already pre-ordered this one. And Andrew Huberman is such a genuine, human being, super inspiring guy. And if you haven't tried it yourself, I recommend to give it a shot. At least, go through the list of what he has there and maybe just pick the episodes that are really interesting for you. Probably not everything is going to be interesting because, I don't know, some of the hormone stuff is not for everybody, but maybe the one that is about supplements and what you should take and what doesn't really work every day, that's very useful for everyday folk. So I would recommend to almost everybody. It's my number 4, Huberman Lab podcast. Now we're getting into top 3. So my number 3 is called Abroad in Japan, just like the YouTube channel, which is run by Chris Broad, and it's amazing. It's a lot of fun. It's done by this guy Chris Broad with Peter. What is his name? Peter something. There are 2 guys. One of them is in the UK, and Chris is in Japan, and they basically discuss, what's been hot in Japan these days, like what's happening there in the news. But the thing is, actually, it's happening quite often. Like, you're getting new episodes every 2 days maybe. So every 2 days you have a content of like 1 hour with news from Japan, with exciting stuff, a lot of questions also from writers and fans of this show. And if you like Abroad in Japan as a YouTube channel, you're gonna love this, because this goes even deeper and it's more R-rated. So because I think in the YouTube channel he's not using too many profanities, but this one is like no filter. It's so much fun, and especially for commuting, for me, that really puts me into the great positive mood. So Abroad in Japan with Chris Broad is my number 3. My number 2 is linked to one of my biggest passions, which is technology, and it's called Waveform, the MKBHD podcast. So that's done by Marcus Brownlee and his crew, the famous YouTuber that has 19 million subscribers. He's really doing great for himself. But this is also a format that is coming, I think, once or twice per week, and they are always basically discussing all the new announcements and new reviews, new gadgets, new technology, news in AI, and it's so inspiring and so refreshing. It's a crew of like 4 or 5 people sometimes. They have also trivia section, and they are always in great mood, and you learn a lot through this, especially if you're into technology. And if you like, that YouTube channel, MKBHD, I'm sure you're gonna love this. Waveform is done so well, because MKBHD channel, has a lot of, let's say, kind of budget. They are always going for high quality when it comes to how the show looks. This sounds much better than most of the podcasts that are out there, to be honest, because they really deliver. This is what they're into. They want to have number 1. So that's been my number 2, Waveform podcast. And my number 1, that might surprise some, and it might not, but it's actually Lex Fridman podcast. So Lex Fridman is such a positive, loving, spirit of a man, and I think he's doing the podcast better than anybody, because his format is he's talking to people really long form to uncover everything, to go super deep into every topic. So it's usually like 2, 3, 4 hour episodes. So he definitely got inspired, and he's a big fan of Joe Rogan, so he got inspired by him. He's also a big friend and fan of Andrew Huberman and Elon Musk. So these guys are all together. Like, if you like one of them, you're likely gonna like also Lex. And he goes so deep, and the way that he asks questions, just makes you understand people on a totally different level. He lets people really talk, and sometimes also his commentaries are really adding a lot of value. And I think the guests and the topics that he brings are, at least to me, are the closest, to what I really like to listen to. So whenever there is a new, podcast episode of Lex, I drop almost what I'm doing, and I'm like, for example, if I'm listening to an audiobook or to a different podcast, I will probably pause that and first listen to what Lex had to say, or his guests had to say. He recently went to Amazon forest to do ayahuasca, trip, and he's been there for like a couple of weeks, discovering animals and discovering himself. And again, he also recorded a podcast from there, just in the middle of a jungle, and it's probably the best thing that I've ever kind of heard myself. I don't watch it on YouTube with the camera. I always listen to the Apple Podcast version, but Lex Fridman's podcast is my number 1. So here you have it, my top 12 podcasts in the world right now. That is actually shifting quite a lot. Some of these are new, some of them are old. Let's see if we revisit in a 1 year's time, how is it gonna look like. But let me know in the comments what you like. I really want to get inspired also by you. If there's something that I'm missing, and based on this list, let me know, because I really want to try it out. I'm super excited about this format. This is probably, apart from, let's say, YouTube, my favorite type of content that is out there these days, and I'm really here for it. Otherwise, this has been Jakub Vaniš, JV Talks, episode 14, and if you like this type of content, please hit the subscribe button or a like button. That really influences the YouTube algorithm in a positive way for me, and I wish you an amazing day. Thanks a lot, everybody, and take care. Bye bye. Cheers.